1.5 update video. If you're in charge of a big network, and if you're wondering whether NeDi can help managing your network, have a look at the new features and let me convince you that NeDi is the tool you actually want to use. I had a year to improve a lot on the discovery itself, which allows you to skip what you don't need and really focus on the actual purpose you want to use NeDi for. Introducing policies, you can act upon conditions you specified before. Furthermore, you can execute external scripts on every device you find in your network. The lifecycle management has been greatly improved and even includes vendor end-of-life information. And as usual, there have been a lot of other improvements. First of all, look and feel has been improved a big deal. I spend a lot of time removing the quirks from the GUI and solely relying on CSS and HTML5. Every list module features a little report which makes it easier to get started. The whole context help you can access with the lifesaver icon on the top right has been rewritten and rearranged. Additionally, a lot of improvements help to understand your network topology better. One of which is the lag support, which should allow for trunks to be associated with the physical interface, for example. Another little feature is event acknowledgement, which means you can click on an event ID, which will degrade the level of an event, and it sort of disappears from the today's view of major alerts and stuff like that. The policy system allows you to search for strings in configurations to act upon detected MAC addresses, which actually replaces the former stolen nodes feature. But you can also act on detected neighbors. So for example, you can act on detected phones from this vendor or this vendor, specify a policy, and turn power off or leave it on, depending on whether you want those phones to be powered up or not. It also ties in very well with the monitoring timeline, which features bar charts and line charts now. I improved support on any modules on your devices. So now for most Cisco devices, I can also get the power status of each module. This can be extremely helpful when you find power supplies that don't actually get power from the source. Many devices allow you to add a description to certain modules. I mean fabric extenders in particular. So you could add the rack position of your fabric extender and have them mapped to your racks, displaying available switch ports, for example. This can be a great help if you have a data center only managing a few switches using fabric extender or another fabric technology. Additionally, we've gotten a new report function that allows you to pretty much join any table to the devices and creating very flexible reports. You probably tried using the maps from NeDi. This is still work in progress, but I've improved quite a bit to make them more usable. Now you can easily draw weather maps down to the device level and use maps you've created for the monitoring screen. I've spent a lot of effort to improve large-scale network performance. So in this example, we see NeDi discoveries, 7 in parallel, discovering a total of around 10,000 devices. The benefit, if you add the topology awareness to it, you see how many ports are available in a certain location. You can leverage it for monitoring and even draw the topology, whether or not you have any discovery protocols available. Another step forward is the customizing features. So for example, if a switch's CLI doesn't respond anymore, you can still configure it to be rebootable via SNMP. Now you can simply add a button into NeDi that does exactly that. Another interesting feature is that you can customize any interface, for example. With that, you can click on this link and it will actually run the cable diagnostics on it. Customizing also means that UPS support is much better than it used to be. I've also been working on discovering a network through a Cisco APIC EM controller. It's quite interesting that you don't rely on SNMP or Telnet anymore to discover the network devices, the configuration, and even the topology. Well, let's face it, sometimes the network doesn't really do what you wanted it to, right? Right. So NeDi can help you understand your network topology much better, and it doesn't require you to do a whole lot of things for that. First step in troubleshooting networks with NeDi can be accomplished even without logging into NeDi. A user or a supporter at the user's desk can simply click on this icon to get some statistics on the port the computer in question is connected to. It shows you duplex and speed of your interface, whether it has been changing in the past discoveries or not. It gives you a simple radar chart showing traffic, errors, discards, and broadcasts on this particular interface. And you don't have to be a network expert to know if this port has a network problem or not. Now let me log in to actually show you NeDi 1.5. The default landing page is still the user profile, but as you might know, this admin notice can be edited to pretty much contain whatever you want. You can even include built-in NeDi functions. In this case, we are seeing the device discover history, which should give you an idea of your network at a glance, just right when you log in. You can also search for a device if you add the appropriate input fields, or even search for a node, just the same way. Speaking of nodes, so whenever you go to node list, you get the summary beneath. Same goes for device list, you get a little summary of all your devices. The idea behind that is that if you're interested in all your 5 Cisco devices, just click on the number, you stay in device list, and it's filtering already for the Cisco devices. On the other hand, if you click on the Cisco label, it will take you to device reports and filter on the vendor Cisco and creates a bunch of reports, just like that. Again, when you're here, you want to list whatever devices are running this firmware. You click on the number and you're back in device list, filtering for boot image and vendor straight out of the report. As you might know, NeDi can leverage your topology information contained in the SNMP location field. There is new ways of mapping any existing location list you might have to your devices. You should end up with a table view like this, where you can see your regions, and then you could add how many devices you've got per region, how many computers, and even how many free ports per region. This is all interactive, so you can check out all the devices in Switzerland, for example. Or if you go back, you can drill down. And depending on how far you went with this location string or details, you can even drill down into the racks. Now this makes it easy if you do monitor the network with NeDi, because all this information will be leveraged. So for example here, we got a switch down for 45 minutes. You do see those alerts here in the top emergency and alert list. And also down here now, you see in Switzerland, you got one device that's broken. If you drill down, you'll notice that the header here will adapt depending on what you're looking at. So if I go to Zurich, my down device is gone because I'm not looking at the whole region anymore. If you go back, we see everything again. And another new feature I've mentioned before as well, you can click on the ID, which will acknowledge this event. When we go back, we only got those two events, but the other one is gone, so it doesn't show up in your statistics anymore. Well, I lied, it's down here, but it's not a critical event anymore. NeDi discovers your network and can gather statistics of every interface concerning traffic, errors, discards, and inbound broadcasts. It's not designed to do this every 5 minutes, but it does it for every interface. So even though you would only get an average traffic value of the hour, for example, you could add discards to see what interfaces do have problems. Alternatively, you can also graph the errors and find all those ports having trouble communicating. So this also helps in proactive monitoring without having 5-minute or even less intervals between polls. The idea with NeDi as well is that if you do have a device that causes problems, let's say it's down here in Zurich, and if I do have an interface I want to investigate further, I simply pull up the real-time graph, move it down to 1 second, and I can even get a broadcast graph to show up. Obviously, not that much going on here. Now it's much easier to see what neighbor and what neighbor type is connected to a particular port. You also see PoE statistics and whether PoE is enabled or not. Those fields here have been a little bit improved in that they will show up in yellow if you have a lot of broadcasts or discards on a certain port, and they will be completely blank if they're only zeros. Makes it much easier to spot problems. Furthermore, the filtering of individual ports down here has been streamlined, so you could show any port that's been down for 7 or more days. You can also filter on the PVID and only look at the ports that you're really interested in, be that for troubleshooting or patching. Now let's have a quick look again at devices list. It's fairly obvious where you are in this module, but let's pull up this one, and it's not quite clear where you actually are. So to make stuff easier, you do get a mouse over if you hover over the icon, or if you look at the footer, you see the exact module name, so in case you get lost, you know where you are. If you do have a longer list, if you scroll down with the default theme, the header will stay and the menus are always accessible. On the very bottom, with the footer, you can click this triangle to get back to the top. Now let's have a quick look at the device list. And if you select this column here, you get to see some real-time spanning tree statistics of every device, which should help you to identify spanning tree problems. As you can see, this guy here is yellow because the last topology change was only 4 minutes ago. Another way you can troubleshoot stuff with NeDi is leveraging the whole event system. So with monitoring health, you get the graph on all the events that occur in this network. You can adjust the graph to fit your needs and then use this in the timeline. The timeline, as I've shown earlier, contains graphical views as well as tabular views. You could group by class, as every event in NeDi is bound to a class. So for example, we do have an interface disabled event on 13:55 on the 21st of September, I can filter that very event and check out what happened. It might be the cause of a problem I had. The custom report makes it very easy to generate reports across the whole database. What happens, it will use the device table as a base with all the fields from the devices, and then it will join whatever table you want it to, and then you can group on certain things like, for example here, speed and duplex, and then you see how many interfaces you've got at which speeds and duplex. You could also create a report filtering on all SNMP devices, and then you include the modules table and just select location, set what level of location you're interested in, and you'd also select mod description, for example, and you get a report on how every module type or description is distributed across your cities. Another feature of NeDi that's evolved over the years is the whole node tracking, and as you can see, we do still have great in-depth knowledge of every MAC address on your network. The node status has been improved as well. You can now also search for IP addresses and DNS names. You can execute certain actions like port scans, find what most common ports are open on a certain node. You can see the MAC address, the tracking of interface speed and duplex, the link, and the corresponding device and interface. Any actions related to the MAC address can be called here. And this one creates a MAC policy with a mail action telling me that it was marked on this switch port 3, and if I do add it, I get a new policy. This is replacing the old node stolen feature and allows for even more actions based on MAC address, neighbor names, neighbor types, or configuration. Here is an example. Of a configuration policy which will fire whenever the word public is found in a configuration that's being backed up. We can easily test this by actually backing up a switch. If I double click in here, the window will scroll down automatically. If I double click it again, it will stop that. And down here we can see that an event has been triggered by this policy matching public. It does create an event telling me that this configuration matched this policy. Updating NeDi from 1.4 is very simple. All you need to do is go to Services, stop whatever is running, go to System Files, update NeDi, which is still only 3.6 megabyte in size, so it's fairly easy to do via browser. If you choose to update with backing up the config, you might want to have a look at NeDiConf here, as there have been a few new options added. Next step is to update the database, which is very easy as well. You just need to do this. Afterwards, you just start the services you want again. And that's it. You can log out, reload, and enjoy NeDi 1.5. In spring 2014, I've quit my job and started turning NeDi from a hobby into a powerful network management solution. The results are very promising and have only just begun. Have a look at NeDi's homepage for more information. Thanks for watching.